Hey friends, it's Sunday morning. Kids and the wifey are out of the house, and I thought instead of going to the city and photographing, I will just stay home and edit some photos and work on some videos that I've been working on. And then I had this idea about maybe it's time I'll start to share my processes when it comes to editing photos and what I look for in my images in post-production. And maybe I'll make some videos when I'm in the CBD, Sydney, what I'm looking for from a photography perspective. But for now, I've got about 80 images imported, 80 images I've probably taken over the last 3-4 days, a couple of trips to the CBD, a couple of trips with the family out to the beach. I've got a few photos in here to share with you to show what I'm looking for when I'm in my post, I guess, production kind of viewing of the images. Let's do this. So the first image here is from Martin Place Station, the new metro station. It's really beautiful. There's a lot of shapes and lines and an environment that really drives you to want to get your camera out and photograph these scenes that are large from a scale perspective. A lot of times they're quite busy, but right now, because we're in early January, a lot of people are out of town, so you get more opportunities to find an individual as opposed to a large group of people going up and down these beautiful long escalators. First image here, it doesn't really work for me. I've got a lot of lines and the subject's on the top right, top left-hand corner. From a composition perspective, I think I've done a good job aligning what I wanted to do. I wanted the lines from the bottom left to lead to the top, from the bottom right to lead up to the bottom left, and I've done that. There's a single subject. However, she kind of just blends into the background and doesn't really stand out. She's not doing anything interesting. She's not wearing anything interesting. So this is not an image that I would keep. So I've marked it by the X here in the bottom in Lightroom, so I know I'll get rid of this image later on. I continue to work on this scene as I was going up the escalator. Yeah, same here. Again, I really like the shape at the end here. I like the white lines, the white backdrop on the top, but not a whole lot going on that captures my attention. The people to the left are distracting as well. This one I don't mind. I've increased the exposure here to 1.7, which I think I've done for all the other images as well. Again, my subject is in a really good place. If I'm looking at these lines and what it'll lead to the middle-esque top left, she's placed well. I like the bright lights, the reflections, the ceiling, the wall. I don't mind her here. Again, we see so many people holding their phones in front of their faces and just being lost in their phones. I don't like this in photography. I don't like people, when they're looking at their phones, I feel like they just have no soul, no engagement, nothing. I don't think I'll keep this, and I've marked this as an X as well to move on. Next image, I turned around just to see if there was a different perspective I could work on. Very bland, very boring, very bright. Good lines leading down. Again, like you can see what I do with my lines a lot is I lead the top left to the bottom right here to try to create a balanced image from a composition perspective, but from a storytelling, it's just there's nothing there to show. So this was another scene. Again, I'm walking out the metro station. Let me have a sip of my coffee here. Coffee. I see two kids with their parents. I photograph my kids all the time. I share the photos of my kids on social media. It's not something that bothers me. So I don't mind photographing other children when they're around. However, I'm conscious that a lot of parents are worried about that specific scenario. So I'm very mindful of that. These two kids were going up. They were really playing with each other, very playful with each other. I'm assuming they're brothers, obviously same parents. And I just decided to again work the scene with them. Leading lines from the escalator perspective, I'd probably go to my geometry tool here and fix this. Hopefully Lightroom, there we go, does fix it. Nothing going on here. Again, next image, a little bit better, but there's just way too much going on in this frame. If you were to draw the three lines from a compositional perspective, let me try to find them in... Where is it? If you put the thirds rule kind of up, you can see they're sort of framed where they need to be. But again, overall, this image is very bland. Nothing interesting going on here. And I forgot to mark these as a reject as well. Yep, same with this. Different angle, similar results. Not a whole lot going on here. All right. A lot of photography that I do is unplanned. I don't like to plan my photo shoots, if you can call them photo shoots, or my walks in the CBD, because it's just my personality. Everything in my life is planned. I have a full-time job. I have family. I've got 4 kids, and they've all got activities that are scheduled in the calendar. So a lot of times I'm supposed to be somewhere at a certain time. I have meetings, work meetings that I have to attend to. Obviously, it's my job. So when it comes to photography, I don't want to put that restriction on myself. I don't want to have to schedule a specific time of day, do a whole bunch of research in what I need to go and what's the light going to look like. So for me, a lot of it depends on serendipity, being on the streets, walking the streets, following my intuition, following light, looking for interesting subjects. So in this case, I've walked out of Martin Place Station. I think I was about to go and get a haircut at this point. So I'm walking up and I see this lovely lady here who's really well dressed. She got my attention because she's got lighter hair, and the light was hitting her and reflecting off her hair, and her outfit's very beautiful. She's really well dressed, and she was window shopping at the least. So I thought, while I'm walking towards where I'm going, I'll just keep my eye on her and see if I can make anything out of it, because again, I'm looking for an interesting subject. And I love this area of Martin Place. It's really beautiful. Lots of glass, lots of light, interesting reflections. However, as you can see, though, composed probably okay in this image, nothing's going on here, nothing interesting. There's way too much, if anything, going on in the windows and reflections. And yeah, she doesn't really stand out. Similar here, body language is all off. Compositions okay, but nothing interesting to show for. So I've rejected these 2 images, just double checking. Yep. And then this last one here, before I walked by her, I was hoping that she'd continue to look forward so I could get a side profile, or as she turned her head, you can kind of see the wind is in her hair and blowing it. So I was trying to get that effect from the wind. As you can see, I've misfocused by quite a bit. So my focusing was off quite a bit. This image, even if everything else was okay, I highly doubt it would have worked, just because I've misfocused by quite a lot. So moving on. This is a little bit after. Again, on my way home, I decided to walk through Pitt Street, and I saw this window. It's a retail shop, Aesop. You don't see these old TVs around very much. And I just stood in front of it to see what was going on, and I took my camera out, and you can kind of see me here in the reflection, trying to compose something from these TVs. In this in particular scenario, I wasn't actually trying to get anything from these images. If I can expand on that, what I'm trying to say is these images were taken for a point of reference, so I could come home and actually see it on a bigger screen, see what it looks like, and hopefully think about, from a photography perspective, do I want to go back to the spot? and try to work something out with a different lens or with the same lens. What can I do with it? So I made these 3 images. I kind of find the video that's playing in the TV is quite interesting, but I haven't figured out what I want to do with it yet. So I've kind of gone through this. Again, this is 40mm focal length. I was fairly close to the window. No one's walking in front of me. It's difficult to see the reflections in the background. But yeah, this was just a point of reference. I didn't really attempt to or wanted to make something out of this for now. Absolute rubbish. Gentleman was wearing a hat. I missed my timing. It's out of focus, so gone. This was interesting. At a store on, I think, Castlereagh Street, if I'm not mistaken. The 2 ladies here sitting in the window. I had a slower shutter speed on. I was hoping for a couple of cars to go by and create some light streaks, but nothing came by, and I can see my hands far too shaky here for this to be even remotely usable. So these are both unusable. You can see I attempt this a lot from an escalator's perspective. I'd go on a metro quite a lot from where I live to where I work or where I spend my time from a photography perspective. I find escalators quite interesting because of all the reflections you get off the glass or plastic walls. Yet to figure out what I want to do with them. Interesting subject, longer leading lines, probably a 28mm as opposed to a 40. So I need to continue to play with this idea as I travel back and forth. This scenario worked for me. And you can see I've already marked this as picked as an image. And the reason it works for me is that you've got all the leading lines here in the image, all around you, and it's leading your eyes down this shape down here. You've got a subject here towards you, the viewer. She's wearing dark color clothing, so it's naturally contrasted. And then your eyes will follow that line down to this lady here, who I think from a shape perspective, it really works for me. Her haircut, the way it's short, it stands out. She's wearing darker clothing again, it helps stand out. And the gentleman at the very end here, so again, your eyes are starting here, falling through and leading up to this gentleman who is holding a suitcase, wearing, from the looks of it, a black suit or a darker suit. And I love this image. Do I wish maybe I had my 28mm on so this was a bit wider and would give you a bit more of a scale? Maybe. But I think this still really works for me, so I've marked this as a possible yes. And same with this one. My hands are a little bit shaky in this one. I gotta see what my... What was I shooting at here? 1600 ISO, f6.8. I remember that. I remember having my aperture a little bit wider. I don't know if it was 6.8, but it was definitely wider because I wanted to create a bit of depth. 1/125th of a second. So it's a little bit of a slower shutter speed, just below the 250 mark. So a little bit of a handshake and you get slightly a blurry image. This still works for me, although we lose the gentleman with the suit and the briefcase. So I think out of the two, I much prefer this. It's obviously not blurry, it's in focus. And I think all three subjects are placed perfectly. So this image really works for me. I might give it 3 stars just to give myself that reminder that this image is something I do like more than usual. So we move on, and this is family stuff. This is my little boy. I love photographing him. He is amazing. He doesn't complain about taking his photos taken at all, unlike my other kids. And I just find him extremely adorable and cute, and he's so loving and engaging. So when we're out, even in the house, I photograph him a lot. So this is just us crossing the bridge to go to the park. White outfit against a fairly grayish background. nothing extraordinary. Though this one, I prefer this one more. This one's okay from a perspective, from his body language, it's okay. But this image here, where I've got him placed towards the bottom of the frame, and I give the audience kind of a bit of a scaled look of what's around with the circular bridge on top of his head. And I really love the these things on the ground. I don't know what they're called, but I find that they work really great when it comes to black and white photography. They give you a bit more to look at, and as you'll see as I go through these images, I use them a bit when it comes to my photography. This image works well as well, but I think this is just a much better image here. I'll carry on. This one, I do sometimes get quite close to him, even though, again, I've got a 40mm lens on. Nothing extraordinary. It's all right. He's got a cute outfit that's white. His skin tone and the color of the floor kind of blend in. I don't mind it. It's okay. I love this little, like, this the way he stands. This is just really cute. So I really enjoy having these images long term. This isn't something I would probably print, but I definitely would keep this for a long time. Okay, this is my lovely wife. Hope she won't complain that she's in this video. Hi, if you're watching this. We're crossing the street, and my wife is trying to teach my little boy to look for cars as we cross the street. And you can see the way I've lined this up. I'm to the right, so I've put my subjects to the left, and I've really tried to use these leading lines here on the ground to create the feeling of you wanting to look towards the subjects. A little bit closer here. And then this. I specifically pushed my subjects towards the very, very left to create this, because you've got, and I would probably edit this a bit more from a contrast perspective. Let me just increase the contrast a touch. Deepen my blacks a little bit more. I wanted to keep this image balanced from what's happening towards the left. So you got a bit happening towards the left, the white lines, the subjects, and you've got the negative space towards the right. And this really works for me from a photography perspective. Continue to work that scene with them. This is him trying to climb, and I probably need to increase the exposure here a bit. I don't know, there's a lot going on here. This isn't an image I'd probably keep in black and white. I try to avoid areas like this. It just makes the image look super busy and distracting, so I don't really like looking at things like that when it comes to black and white. This image may have worked in color, because the color would have created a bit more separation between what's happening in the background, but in black and white, yeah, this is a reject for sure. A few more of the kids playing here. I'd probably keep this one for sure. This one, it's okay. I don't like his expression here very much, Kairo's expression, so I'll reject that one. Okay, so I'm on working on active projects, Sydney beaches, and that's really my focus at the moment. Well, I wouldn't say focus, because I'm unfortunately don't have the dedicated time to go to Sydney beaches and photograph them. I'm trying to paint a picture of what Sydney beaches look like in summer versus winter, and just the lifestyle and culture that we have here in Sydney. So we were on the beach with the fam. This is Palm Beach. It's extremely windy, really hot day as well. And it's a big risk to have my camera on the beach when it's windy and hot. and I've got sunscreen on my hands. I don't really want to get my camera dirty or get sand all over my camera. So I pulled up with the car here as I was moving it closer to us where we're staying on a beach. And these two were sitting on a table, looking out towards the ocean. I love the flat line here. And though from an image perspective, not a whole lot going on here, right? You've got a lot of negative space up here, subjects bottom left, not a whole lot going on here. So I probably wouldn't keep this image at all. So I have this thought process, the way I think about what I do with my photography, which images I keep, which ones I pick, and which ones I get rid of. Anything that's obviously not good, it's gone. There's no need to keep it for me. It's just distraction. It's just images that are taking up space in the cloud, on a hard drive, SSD, whatever you use. No point of keeping your terrible images. Images like this, where I'm a little bit unsure about how this will age. So a lot of times I think about my legacy and what I want to accomplish from photography, what I want to get to. And I think I've decided for me, when it comes down to it, is whenever it is that I am going to die and pass away, I want to have a body of work that I leave behind, at least for my kids, to look at and be proud of and hopefully cherish. And I also have a lot of books that I look at from 50, 60 years ago. You look at culture, lifestyle, what people are wearing, architecture, cars, hats, newspapers, and see how that's evolved over time. I look at this image and I go, I don't know, like the subjects aren't wearing anything interesting that's uniquely our times, a t-shirt and a dress. It's the beach, but you can't really see the beach. Will this age well, or at least be something that I'd want to look at in 20 years? I don't know, probably not. So I will probably reject this. However, if the answer to that was yes, and I thought to myself, this image may not be worth sharing on social media now, or something that I would put in a book now, but it might be something that in 20 years I'd reflect back and I go, hey, this is saying a story about this current time, that I might keep that around. What I'm going to do quickly, I'm just going to copy the changes I've made here so I can paste them to this image. The gentleman walking in the frame, I don't mind it. Again, for what I was trying to accomplish, which was really beach, this doesn't work. It's a very average image at best. Yep, reject. Paste the settings here again. This one's a little bit better. I've got a bit more showing down here and a little bit less up here. So I might keep this one around and think about it for a little while. This was a bit of an intimate moment. Let me just quickly adjust the settings here. As they went for a kiss, I already had my camera up and I did snap a photo. I don't typically photograph people when they're showing intimate moments in public. That's one thing I don't necessarily enjoy photographing. It's not for me, and I also don't really feel like invading someone's. I know they're in public, but it's also something that's quite personal and potentially intimate. So I don't really want to photograph that. I think it's just, in my book, my opinion, not something I want to do. This is probably the only time I've done that. Photographed it because I was already expecting something to happen, and this happened, but it's not something that I want to keep, so I'll reject that as well. Okay, the last little bit here, if you've stayed with me for this long, this is a very poorly composed image because I was far away from the subjects here. And I'll just paste my settings really quick just so I can see what's going on better. These two subjects were quite interesting to me. They were older, they were both wearing bright colors, they both had white or gray hair, which again in black and white really sticks out, or stands out I should say. I did eventually get closer. Again, not a whole lot going on here. Way too much showing in the sky. This is a little bit more balanced from a perspective of a photo being composed properly, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know if it really tells a story. The subjects are still, the main subjects are still really too far. The beach is more visible. I continue to get a little bit closer. This is probably the better one, and I can see that I've already marked this as something that I want to keep and work on, or at least consider working on or keeping as part of the project. You can see them a little bit better. At least you can see the hair flowing in the wind. The beach is present. The image is a bit more balanced. I probably would have wanted to have a bit more space in the bottom here. I think there's way too much going on, or sorry, way too much sky in this image. I did walk behind them. Again, I was very cautious. I don't want to be standing out. I don't want someone to notice I'm taking photos of them, because that moment, they're no longer themselves. They're going to be a bit more defensive and cautious about how they are. So you lose that sense of candidness and authenticity quite quickly. So I was walking behind them cautiously and hoping they wouldn't notice me. It does help that I have a smaller camera that's not as noticeable. I think I'm going backwards here. There we go. I can see that I've also missed focus from the looks of it by a bit. Still usable. Though I don't know if there's a whole lot going on between these two over here that I would find interesting. Classic pointing to things in street photography. I'm not entirely opposed to it. However, it's not something that I love either. With this, I was trying to get something a bit more symmetrical. I remember this. Now let me just fix the view. And I think my lens was potentially dirty, so I've got all these marks showing up in the image that I need to fix if I keep this image. Again, not a whole lot going on here, so I'll keep moving on. You can see that I continue to work the scene. I probably spend about 5 to 10 minutes hoping that something would come out of the interaction between these two lovely people who are on the beach and enjoying the view, and I certainly did my best not to intrude. And at this point, I try to use the car to frame as they're walking away. Doesn't really work. Nope. Okay. So that's the end of it. I don't think I got much from these two subjects at all. Last little bit before I let you go. I've said this before on social media, and if you know me and talk to me in person, I photograph my kids a lot, and I really enjoy photographing them. Although the older ones don't really like it, and they put their hands up in the camera, or they make silly faces to deter me from photographing them, besides my youngest, who's very happy to be photographed. So this is my second oldest. As we were getting in the car, the light was incredible, as you can see, and I think Keon is incredibly photogenic. I think he's a very handsome little boy. He's got beautiful curls, beautiful smile, and he had sand all over him. So I quickly moved the focus tab to the closest to me. I think my aperture would have probably been around f11 or f16, so it would have been pretty safe to just bring the aperture tab closest to me, so it's the closest focus to the camera, and just one eye on the camera and one eye with my subject and interacting with him. I have gotten rid of a few silly photos as he was making faces and I was photographing him, and I just love these images. They're everything to me. I'd love to print a few of these, and although I hate this car being in the background, hate it, hate it, hate it. He is perfectly lit. His expression's very authentic. He's looking at me through the camera, which I love. That's that moment when I know I've nailed a portrait of my kids, is when they're interacting with me and they don't really see the camera anymore. This is him being silly with his towel. I usually also shoot at 1/250th of a second. The reason I do that, it's that borderline between where your images are going to be sharp from a motion blur perspective. However, as you can see, the towel here, because he was flicking it, has got some motion blur in it. And because it was quite windy, there's a tiny bit of motion blur in his hair as well. I don't like super sharp images. I don't like images that are perfect. I find them quite boring. Again, this is just my personal opinion. Do whatever you like, whatever makes you happy. For me, I'm trying to create images that look timeless, and I look at some of the greats from 50, 60, 70 years ago. You know, they shot with cameras and lenses that really couldn't give you a lot of sharpness and focus, and there was a bit of motion blur in a lot of what they did. So to me, when I look at this and I see his hair a little bit blurred out on the edges, I see the towel being blurry, it makes it feel like it's an older photo. It feels timeless to me. So I love to keep my shutter speed at 1/250th because of that, because it creates these moments where I've got focus and sharpness and no motion blur in his face because he was naturally standing still. However, anything that was moving semi-quickly, you get that motion blur in. So I think it's incredible to get images like that. This is him getting closer and closer to the camera. I think he's so close now that he's no longer in focus. And I kept this one as well because even though he's put his hand up in front of the lens, it's created this out of focus negative space, and obviously your eyes are naturally drawn to my other son. Now, he's not doing anything interesting. He not engaging with me at all, so I don't know if I'll want to actually print this image at all or keep it in a book, but I'll probably keep it as a piece of memory from us. Similar here, again, you can see him in focus. His eyes are on me, his hands up, kind of saying, I don't want to take my photo. I think my oldest here, Kaveh, is also complaining about his photo being taken, if I remember correctly. But I love this image. It works really well for me. Again, Kian is in focus. His fingers are blurred out. My son is blurred out. This is probably f/16, if I'm not mistaken. And the couple in the background, the door opening, I don't like the bins here, but everything else really works for me. My oldest, one of the very rare moments he'll let me take a photo of him without complaining. Again, this really works for me because of the car door opening up this way, creating this line from almost top left to the bottom right. He's in the center of the image, which I don't usually like to put people in the center of the image, but in this case, I think it works because of what's happening here and around him. Continue to work the scene. And that might be the end of it. So if you stayed through the whole video, this is one of hopefully a few. If you guys enjoyed it, please leave a comment and let me know what you think of it. And if you want to see more, I'm thinking of doing more of these videos where I show some of the behind the scenes, my personal thought processes, actual processes about what I think about when I'm on the street, and what I do after I import some images. So thank you for watching, and see you soon.